To me, it seems inconsistent with your role as FBI Director that you would own stock in a company that is based in a country that is the nation's premier national security threat. It's like you are putting your own financial security over the security of the nation.
I disagree with that characterization.
Well,
can the person investigating China's threats hold millions in Chinese company stock? This heated exchange raises that exact question. Let's watch.
Director Patel, thank you for being here today. I want to first talk about the significant role that the FBI plays in combating the national security threats posed by our nation's greatest threat, our nation's greatest security threat, China and the Chinese Communist Party. It's a fact that China is America's most significant national security threat, isn't that correct?
I would say so, sir.
And you would agree with me that China wants to dominate the United States of America?
I think that's largely their plan.
And they want to dominate the world, both militarily and economically, isn't that correct?
I think so.
And sir, you've been FBI Director for the last, 8 months?
7 months, yes.
7 months, and during that time, have you held any stock in any companies founded in China?
I don't believe so.
Well, you do own stock in a company known as Elite Depot, don't you?
Which one, sorry?
Elite Depot. You own stock.
I think that's, I'll have to get back to you. I think it's a law firm and it's a company out of Singapore.
Okay, well, no, the company out of Singapore, which is owned by Elite Depot, is the Shein Company, which was founded in China, correct?
That company operates out of Taiwan.
Well, they changed their headquarters from China back in 2022 to Singapore for tax purposes, but it's owned by a Chinese billionaire. I think his name is Charlie Zhu, and you own stock in the company that owns Shein.
Which I disclosed during my confirmation process.
You certainly did. And now, do you still hold that stock in that Chinese company?
Pursuant to the Department of Justice, who reviewed my material that was submitted during my confirmation process, I was able to hold certain stocks, and they made the decision.
You still hold the stocks that you have? You still hold on to these Chinese stocks, these stocks in this Chinese company?
I disagree that it's a Chinese company, but I was in the DOJ, when you're appointed, makes a call on what you can and can't possess.
Well, now, let me ask you this. Chinese companies steal trademarks, they produce counterfeit products and sell them over the internet on platforms such as Shein. They steal intellectual property. They steal data from American companies. And to me, it seems inconsistent with your role as FBI Director that you would own stock in a company that is based in a country that is the nation's premier national security threat. It's like you are putting your own financial security over the security of the nation.
I disagree with that characterization.
Well, I think the American people look at it like it's a classic situation of the fox guarding the hen house. If the FBI is charged with investigating espionage, economic espionage by companies controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, and you are the director of the FBI, you've got a conflict of interest.
Sir, I would just show if there's any intimation that I'm against.
Why are you holding on to this stock?
It wasn't a decision I made.
And it's valued at up to $5 million as of when you last reported, correct? $5 million in stock?
No, I don't follow it.
You don't follow it, but you're still making money off of it.
I don't have any money off of anything.
Well,
what I have done...
Trump's trade policies directly impact the value of that Chinese stock. Won't you agree with that?
Which trade policy? I'm not a trade expert.
Okay, all right.
But I want to tell you this.
Crazy on me today. Let me ask you this question. Why are you hiding pedophiles? Why are you shielding pedophiles? Why are you protecting pedophiles?
That is maybe the most offensive thing you could say to me, given the numbers.
Well, you have not released
Given
the
the
Epstein
numbers
files.
of pedophiles.
You are aware of
we
the
have
Epstein
arrested-
client list that was published in the 18,000.
The gentleman has
emails released?
expired. The gentleman yields
Can I just-
back.
Can you answer the question?
Can I just respond?
Of course, the gentleman can answer the question.
Since I took over the FBI, there has been a 33% increase.
Sir, all of that
Counter-
started under Christopher
Your
Wray.
time is done, but
No, it didn't.
the witness gets to
All of
answer
that
the
started
question,
under
and then
the
we'll go to our
previous,
next.
33
FBI director, sir, and you're coming in here trying to take credit for something that a previous director
Gentlemen,
instituted and largely brought to conclusion.
I take
I think it's
credit.
pretty clear that
offensive.
the
It's
director
offensive.
has numbers are so
incorrect
much
also.
better than the previous director.
It's
Dr. Patel, if you want to answer the question.
I take no credit. The men and women of the FBI have seen a 33% increase in the number of counterintelligence arrests out of the
And
PRC.
so all of a sudden, when
And
you
the-
coming in 7 months ago,
and,
Gentlemen, his time has
Heaven on earth.
expired.
and on the
sir, the
pedophile
American public not gonna
accusation,
go for that.
we have arrested 1,500 child predators in the last 7 months.
Under
More
investigations
than
initiated by
anybody
the prior
Appreciate the
directorship.
director's good work, and we really appreciate that the time the gentleman has expired. We now
Okay, so we just watched something pretty intense unfold right there. This was a congressional hearing where a representative from Georgia spent 5 minutes grilling FBI Director Kash Patel about his financial holdings. At the time of this hearing, Director Patel had been in the role for 7 months. The exchange covered two main issues: stock holdings in a company with Chinese connections, and then an abrupt pivot to questions about the FBI's handling of child predator investigations. Let me walk through what actually happened here. Both the representative and Director Patel started on common ground. They agreed that China represents America's most significant national security threat, and that China aims to dominate both militarily and economically. No disagreement there. That's the foundation they built from. Then came the main issue. The representative brought up that Director Patel owns stock in Elite Depot, which owns Shine, the fast fashion company you probably heard of or used. According to the representative, this stock is worth up to $5 million based on financial disclosures. Now, here's where the characterization matters. The representative called Shine a Chinese company because it was founded in China and is owned by a Chinese billionaire. He acknowledged that Shine moved its headquarters to Singapore in 2022, but he framed that as a tax strategy rather than a meaningful change in the company's identity. The representative's argument was clear. If you're the FBI director tasked with investigating Chinese espionage, economic threats, and national security risks from China, and you're simultaneously holding millions in stock connected to a Chinese billionaire's company, that looks like a conflict of interest. He used the phrase "fox guarding the henhouse" and suggested that Director Patel was putting his own financial interests ahead of national security. Director Patel pushed back on several points. First, he disputed that Shine is a Chinese company. He seemed to place more weight on the Singapore headquarters. Second, he emphasized that he fully disclosed these holdings during his confirmation process and that the Department of Justice reviewed everything and determined he could hold these stocks. He made it clear that the decision wasn't his personal choice, but rather a determination made by DOJ based on their ethics guidelines. He also said he doesn't actively manage or follow the value of these holdings. Looking at the strengths of each side, the representative came prepared with specific information. He knew the company's structure, the ownership details, the stock value. He wasn't speaking in vague terms. He had concrete facts to reference. And honestly, the question he's raising is one that many Americans would find legitimate. Should someone investigating threats from a country have financial ties to companies from that country? Director Patel also had a solid defense. There's an established ethics process for government officials. He went through it. He disclosed everything. The Department of Justice, not him personally, made the call that these holdings were acceptable. That's not an insignificant point. He also had performance data ready. A 33% increase in counterintelligence arrests and 1,500 child predator arrests during his 7 months as director. But there were gaps in the conversation. We didn't get details about what the DOJ ethics review actually entails. What criteria do they use to determine if a holding creates a conflict? Why was this particular holding deemed acceptable? That context would have been really valuable. There's also the definitional question that never got fully resolved. What makes a company Chinese? Is it where it was founded? Where it's currently headquartered? Who owns it? Where it's incorporated? The representative and director disagreed on this. And it's actually a pretty important distinction that affects how we think about the conflict of interest question. Then we hit the sudden shift where the representative asked, "Why are you hiding pedophiles?" That accusation came with no context or specific evidence presented in this clip. Director Patel was visibly offended. He said it was maybe the most offensive thing you could say to him, and tried to respond with arrest statistics. But the chairman cut things off due to time limits, and there was this back and forth about whether the arrest happened because of Director Patel's work or investigation started under the previous director. The tone throughout this exchange escalated quickly. It started relatively professional, but became confrontational, especially with phrases like fox guarding the henhouse and the pedophile accusations. Director Patel maintained composure initially, but became defensive when personally attacked. "I'm not endorsing or opposing either person here. I'm just analyzing what we saw. This is a kind of exchange where both sides will likely walk away feeling vindicated, and their supporters will too. What I appreciated. Both sides agreed on the China threat. Both brought specific data points rather than just rhetoric, and a legitimate oversight question was raised about ethics standards for high-level officials. What I'm left wondering, what are the specific DOJ ethics standards? How do they determine what's acceptable? What would have been different if the director divested? And what was the actual basis for the child predator line of questioning? I want to see more transparency about the ethics review process, more substantive discussion about what constitutes a disqualifying conflict, and more detailed information about FBI performance metrics. That's my reaction. Would love to hear yours. If you found this reaction helpful, please give a like. It really helps the channel grow. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. Do you think these stock holdings are a problem, or do you think the DOJ approval is enough? I want to hear both sides. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss future updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.